So I'm sure we've all heard it said, no sex before marriage. And I've heard it. I didn't follow the advice and I suffered the consequences of it. Because one, I never found anybody who really made these points clear, nor did I really care. In this life, I had to make more mistakes than really being hungry for the truth. Um, Sex before marriage. Why is it so important to not have sex before marriage? And I'm going to do my best. And again, like a lot of the clips and videos that I've made from the younger version of myself, I disagree with some of the older views that I had in my podcast. I'm going to put this out here is that you really have to have a foundation of what you believe and why you believe it before you raise a family. And what I see in our world is that there's many patterns. There's patterns of value structures, and I would say that that is what sin is, right? Sin is it's to miss the point, right? And when you miss enough points, you suffer needlessly. And there's aspects of discipline and not giving into, and I've talked about this on previous videos, that you don't give into um the need to feel good or be validated. It's purpose over pleasure, right? Purpose over pleasure doesn't mean there's no pleasure in life. There's plenty of pleasures in life. We should be enjoying what life has to give, what life has to offer, but not at the sacrifice of purpose. And when that is properly ordered, and these to me are the masculine and feminine principles, right? The masculine is, you would say, purpose, and the feminine is pleasure. I wouldn't want a world without purpose or pleasure. You need both of them. But which one would I rather follow? And that would be purpose. And that's where you have God the Father. And that God the Father, that's what it is. It's order. But I need chaos too. I need nuance. I need freshness. I need that feminine energy as well. You need both of them. And what a beautiful world for having both of them. We complement each other as men and women. We complement. You don't want men to be women and women to be men, but that's the line that we're testing right now. And it's sad to see because it's like two magnets losing their polarity and their beauty of each individual. You know, a strong man creates the environment for a woman to surrender to that. And how often do women surrender to a weak man? And that's why women don't resent strong men. They resent weak men pretending to be strong. And in part, that was the thing that I put off for so long, is that, I'm pretending to be this strong man. And it's through the weakness that I actually become strong. And that's, I think it's a deeply Christian principle. I think it's the two people next to Christ. One is saying, get us off here. If you're really who you say you are, if you have the power to get us down from here right now. And the other one is saying, I'm a sinner. I deserve this. And not a poor me, I deserve this, but that's the idea, is that think about how much grace we've been given. All the things that we've done wrong and other people have given us grace. So we are called to give grace to other people. And I think there's a line to that tolerance, and I'll be talking that in other videos. But the main point in in this video is that first and foremost, we have to put purpose over pleasure, and that really is the crux, I believe, of no sex before marriage, because it's a pleasure. When you put pleasure before purpose, you suffer. It's really that simple. Um, and it blinds you. It blinds you. And I think that's it's like anything. It's just like if you're living, if you're living in this perfect feel good world that you don't have, um, there is no purpose. The purpose is the pleasure, which ends up being you need more pleasure, and then you end up destroying yourself. That's the whole point. So the purpose has to be ordered properly first. What do you want out of this life? What would fulfill you? That you just start by asking that question. This is I think in part, you have to become again like a child in order to be born again. In order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to become again like a child, which is that's why. And when we don't have that deep enough why, which is a common theme in the videos I put out, if we don't have that deep enough why, we resort to what? What will satisfy my blocked why? And and the more that you have that blocked why, the more that you need to have more what, which is money or power or status or sex, whatever it is that will fill that void, or drugs, or entertainment, anything to numb the mind. Because it's a painful process to go to say, hey, you know what? I'm going from what oriented to why oriented. Because it's not going to make a lot of sense to people. People will say things like, enjoy, why you don't suffer, don't struggle so much, don't beat yourself up. And that might be the message, because there is, as I recently put out, and I spoke at length on the graceful suffering. And because if it's too much suffering, you're not, it's almost like, it's masochistic. It's not the same. And that's the thing that has to be discerned between, because graceful suffering is the ability to suffer again gracefully. It's the ability to, because pain is an equalizer. We all understand pain. We know loss. It's something that could bring us together, but gracefully accepting what is, that's another thing. Because otherwise it becomes an ego, it becomes arrogant, it's not the same, but they're very close related because we all understand pain. That's a human thing that we deeply understand. And the only thing higher than that is love. And they go hand in hand. Nobody gets to love without pain. And how you meet pain is important determination. Do you meet it with courage, or do you meet it with pride? And do you grow in it, or do you brag about it? So, and it's the path that I'm on. It's not easy, but it wouldn't be worth it if it was easy. And I'll fall, I get back up, I fall, I get back up, and the fall is not, it's falling for that, the pleasure aspect. And this goes back to the whole thing. It goes back to the whole thing. People fall for this illusion of people fall for the illusion of pleasure. Pleasure is going to say, I'm going to make you feel good. It'll be so happy. And you get pulled into that. And I'll be putting more on this too. You have to give the devil its due. I heard recently, and I'll probably put content on this, and this was from Daniel, who I've had on the podcast. And, one of the people I spoke to he said, that's my favorite sin. That's my favorite sin. We like to think that we don't like to sin, but recognizing that there's a part of us that enjoys sinning. It enjoys that. It enjoys the feel good, enjoys the comforts of life. It enjoys going the easy way. I think that's in part helpful to understand that, because otherwise pride comes and say, no, I'm perfect. I wouldn't make any mistakes, or no, I always do the right thing. There's the inclination to pretend that we are so holy, but that quickly becomes holier than thou. There's something real about owning your weaknesses. We're made strong through owning our weaknesses. We admit that this is the idea of AA. You admit that you're powerless, that you are powerless to the addiction. Or with the Catholic faith, you admit you are a sinner. I'm a sinner. Forgive me. I need grace. So there's a lot of power there. But I wanted to really put this video out is because I don't want to see other people make the same mistake or I did, or if they have made the same mistake I did, to see it as a mistake. First of all, because there's plenty of people who are going to disagree. Sex before marriage is not a big deal. And what I would say, to kind of cover as many ends as I can, is not to say that it can't work out, because I think there's plenty of people who can have sex before marriage and it ends up working out, right? If it's properly ordered, or, I think God works in mysterious ways, and that it can work. But I would say that it is not the right way. And the right way is that, again, that structure of that value structure and your purpose for it, which I believe is number one, is for God first, is the truth first, right? Is what is the best way to operate in this world? What is the most important thing? What would be best for me and those around me? Number two would be for a family. And number three would be for love. And this is also some of the wisdom from Father Ripperger. And I think he's spot on, because number one is God, the truth above all else. And because otherwise you screw up when you put anything else before that, it's my family. It's versus, you think about people who were in, our forefathers. A lot of our forefathers sacrificed their families. And what I mean by that is not that they, they put their families in harm's way, but essentially they did, because what their viewpoint was above their family. Their family became enemies of the state. And to do that, that requires courage. And I think it also requires wisdom, because you see that the policies that were in place, the power structures that were in place, put their family in a position that they were essentially slaves. Throughout history, and not just our forefathers, throughout history, people are put in position where there's manipulation, and the state will say one thing and it always comes as kindness, but it's actually, it's you take the movie like 300, for example, right? If you just give us this, we'll give you. Anytime the state wants to do that, it's always for a nice reason, right? It's never for it's never for a they're never going to come out and say that until it's too late, and then they don't need to hide anymore. But that's and I'm going off here a little bit, but I think they're closely related, because I think the problems that we face in the political arena are, they start in the home, they start in the family, and when you destroy the family unit, that's how you can. We're being infiltrated from within, and it's not to freak out. It's understand what's going on, and rectify it to the best of our ability, and understand that I'm not, people are my enemies. So if I want people to challenge my ideas so I can sharpen them, and understand that I'm not going to say it perfectly, but I get the general gist of it, that we are this family unit, the mother, the father, and this perfect balance between both is being dismantled. And I don't think it will be successful long term. I think too many people have woken up. I think too many people are, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I think that this is something that collectively we have to see it together. That we have to see it together. We don't beat each other up. I think there's a great scene in They Live. If you ever seen a great movie, whereas basically you have a whole bunch of people who are seeing the bigger picture, and you have a whole bunch of people who are blind, and then you have some people who are the real battles between the small percentage of people who are trying to control the most people, and the other percentage is the other trying to wake up the other people. And people don't want to wake up; they want to go to sleep. They want to just have their own little comfortable lives, but it requires courage, it requires sacrifice to go this way. And when you start going there, well, it's spiritual warfare. That's how I look at spiritual warfare. Spirit, it's a pattern of behavior, it's a value structure, and there's different patterns at war with each other. So, and I'm on the pattern. I believe in the pattern that it's purpose over pleasure, not pleasure over purpose. And it's not easy, but I don't see how the other could be important, because then it's you create emotions. It's like whoever likes each other more is no. It should be what is right comes first. And that it keeps me accountable. I have to be accountable to that too. It's like it's not fun. It's not fun to look in the mirror and say, hey, you know what? I put pleasure over purpose a lot in my life, and plenty of other people have. And I want to do my best to lead people out of that, because I've realized, it sounded nice, it sounds alluring, but when you see it long term, and this is the idea of kind of communism too, right? It's pleasure over purpose. It plays out. It's so much bigger than, how it's really it sounds nice. That's the thing we have to realize. We have to be spiritually aware to what's going on, which requires discernment. But to bring it back to the main point is that the reason sex before marriage is that we start operating, and you see in a lot of marriages, right? Happy wife, happy life. I don't adhere to that belief system. It's what we spoke about with Jeff Higgins. Jeff Higgins is also a man in the arena. I did a podcast with him. Check out his stuff on here. He is someone who is he's embodying the spirit of the Father. And that is you have to put purpose over pleasure. You have to put discipline over pleasure. And this is the whole idea, because um, is that when it comes to romance, women, that's what's women's thing. Women are creatures of comfort. And I'm not saying, oh, that's changing now. And I think there are exceptions to the rule. But the rule is not the exception. And that's what we're trying to equalize and make both opposites the same, which is not, that's how you destroy. It's the opposite of, generation. It's degeneration. So but to bring it back, the reason the sex before marriage is such an issue is because it blinds you. It blinds, and it sets up the structure that what feels good is priority over what is good and what is right. And that's the beauty of it, right? It's not, it's essentially delayed gratification. It's discipline and delayed gratification. It's not no gratification at all. It's rightly ordered gratification. Because if you don't have that, which I've seen, and I'm in the position now where I see as it's wrong. And I see that with shame. I see that with guilt, and it's not the right way to live. And there's still things that they're not right way to live. But as I've said before, I don't think it's something, I need grace. There's no way I can change overnight. Now I could. It would be it's and I think that's why as a society, if we saw what the truth was overnight, forget it. People would it would do I would believe it would do more harm than good. But that doesn't mean that you just sit back on the sidelines and don't, you don't repent as quickly as you can. That's what we should do. And the better some people can do it. They can do it overnight. I'm not saying that it's impossible. What I'm saying is that even in my own experience, when you start to see this guilt and the shame and expect that to change overnight, you'll end up beating yourself and then you'll knock yourself down. It's too much. It's growth, just like nature. Growth, it takes time. It takes time to heal wounds. It's not just going to happen overnight. We got sick. We didn't get sick overnight. We're not going to heal overnight. But that's not an excuse to stay sick either. It's not an excuse to stay sick and to say, and people may disagree with it, disagree with this point. But you know, I think as I grow in this understanding, my views may change, but I would say right now, at least the value structure has to be in place, right? People say, I don't need to have sex before marriage. What I would say is I would start at least having a value structure. What is your belief system? What do you believe? Where are they in alignment? What are the roles that you're going to play? You need to have some sort of blueprint. And if you don't have that, you put that aside. You say, well, this feels good. I like this. I like that. Then you're setting it up for the wrong foundation, because what happens when the storms comes? Because the storms will come. The storms will come. And I think it's the more that vision is aligned, because you essentially, when you come together, you're going to be a light to other people, or you're going to be a darkness. And you're not even going to be aware. And the light is what I mean is that we all have those people in our life that we look up to. And we shouldn't pedestalize the person, but we should pedestalize their actions, the way they live, the way they interact with other people, the way that they have that we want this. There's a pattern of behavior that we're seeking for in other people, that we have to live that. And it's not easy, because when we live that, again, I've said in other videos, people are going to say, well, why is he really, what's the ulterior motive? Is he doing this? Because we're so conditioned as a society. It's like people aren't genuinely good people anymore. We've lost the standard for that. So we have to become that. And it's painful, because we're going to have to be judged and mocked and criticized, just like Christ was. Christ was perfect, and he was actually perfect. And look what happened to him. So what do you think? You're gonna start going the right way and it's just all gonna work out for you? Absolutely not. And this is where it starts. It starts by questioning these ideas that we've believed for so long, that I've believed for so long. Oh, there's nothing wrong with sex before marriage as long as you're on the same. It was kind of this general thing, but it's not. It's not, because to have sex before marriage is well, what's the point of sex, right? You have to peel back the layers. This is the why. Why have sex? Well, it's just to feel good, right? There's so many lies that we've come to believe, that to just say something like sex before marriage may seem like why? What's the point of that? What's the reasoning behind it? We're such a gratification culture that we can't even question that thing. So, and when I make this video, I think of younger version of me, how would I react to this? And I have to do my best to kind of, on one hand, have grace to say, you know what, young and stupid. That was a different place. But at the same time, the advice that I would give to other people has to be rightly ordered, because people in our society would rather fit in and be accepted than to delay and do the right thing. And it's the ability to communicate and understand people have to make mistakes. I look back at my past and I feel shame and guilt, because I was not the right example to other people in my life. But at the same time, I need grace, because I look back, if I didn't make those mistakes, I needed to make those mistakes. However, this is the hand that I was dealt, and this is the hand that I played. So I have to play the best hand with how I've lived my life. So, and I think that the best thing I can do is help others to not make the same mistakes that I did and to see them as mistakes. And again, not beat yourself up, but understand that the more mistakes that you make, the more that it's going to be hard to reverse that. And to do my best to explain why it is a mistake. And because I think deep down, what people truly want and desire is, first of all, sex is amazing. Why wouldn't you want to have that with someone for the rest of your life? For one, you're creating a generation of people who are like-minded, you and the person that you've come together with. And that's the act of creation. When a man and a woman come together, you're creating, you two are in union. You are one body coming together, and that is your children. Why wouldn't you want that, as many of those as you can make in this world that's crazy and telling you don't have more children, don't do this? You want that. But how do you get that? Because how many people, they come together, they have a relationship, they have that sexual bond together, and then they have to work, they have to protect you. Who are you talking to? Then it becomes jealousy. You have to protect this thing, and it becomes selfish. So we have to deny ourselves, because once you come into that state, sex is very powerful, and it has the power to be degenerate, and it has the power to generate. And when you put sex first before values and your why, and before discipline, then you suffer long term. At least I did. And I think that it is, and you suffer because there's no one that's really challenging these ideas. Not a lot, not enough, I would say. There's definitely people challenging these ideas, and I see it, and I see them in the arena, and I appreciate them, because I needed the message. Because there's plenty of people who are just like me who don't believe what I believe. They say, no, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not hurting anybody. It's like, well, how do you define not hurting anybody? Again, it's more layers. Why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why? Why? And when you face yourself, there's a lot of lies we like to tell ourselves, because if lie feels good to cover up the guilt and the shame. And that's really the fall. So, not a fun video to make, but I think it is necessary, because I think I think it's a message that young men need to hear. It's a message that I wish I heard, and I believe it to be true. That sex before marriage is one of many, right? That that destroys cultures, destroys generations, and that um, if we shift the narrative back to its right order, we can have the best of both worlds. There's nothing wrong with pleasure. There's nothing wrong with sex. Now you have two sides. One says, don't have sex, it's bad, it's bad. You have plenty of people who like deny that part of us, and it's a natural part of us. There's nothing wrong with sex. Sex is a beautiful thing. But then you also have people who just say, no, there's nothing wrong with sex completely, and it's degenerate, and it's in your face, and it's expression without any discipline. It's hedonism disguised as, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's really hedonism, and it's really has nothing. It's nothing. It's selfish. So coming back to this straight and narrow path is that it has to be respected. Sex is very powerful, and it has to be respected. And if it's not respected, then those who don't respect it will bear the fruit of that. Maybe not now, maybe not in a year, maybe not in 2 years, but eventually you pay the consequences. You pay the consequences of your actions. And I believe that when we take ownership and we see them as mistakes and we make those changes, we can have the best of both worlds. Absolutely best of both worlds. And there's exceptions to the rule. The exception is not the rule. And rationalizing bad behavior is not the way. You start with going the right way, making the right moves. And just because, what happens if people can't have children? What happens if this happens? What happens that? Well, those are the secondary things. You cross those bridges when you come to it, but you start from the principle of going the right way, which is first you honor that person. You honor that person. You put values and you put values and you put the right way first, and then have fun completely, because there's plenty of, and then in that order, then there's other parts to that as well. In the sense that, uh, as TylerTott said, in one of his posts recently, that the enemy wants sex before marriage and sexless marriages. He's spot on, because it should be all over each other in a marriage. Absolutely all over each other. It should be playful. It should be fun. You're in it. I mean, you've given your bodily rights to each other. Her body is yours, and his body is hers. You're for each other. Have fun. Go nuts. Have complete fun. Have children. Have a family. Have all of that, part of that. But have fun. That's part of the equation, but it's not the equation. And as a society that's put that first, it ends up, it's great, it's amazing, short term. But then when the storms come, if those values and that structure isn't put in place, then, why am I even, then the D word comes out, divorce, and that ends up hurting everybody. And it's really, it's simple to avoid it. Not easy, especially in our world that, puts degeneration as a priority and makes wrong right and rationalizes it. We have to say things that sting a little bit, and it may sting for a lot of people, but it is true. And I hope other people see it as they ask why, and they look in their own suffering. They look at themselves in the mirror and see how, where they're at in life, that sex before marriage is a symptom of a bigger problem, and one of the symptoms of a degenerate culture that has been rationalized as something that's okay. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. And remember, discipline is your friend. Delayed gratification is a great way to look at discipline. Not that you're never going to have gratification. Sex is part of life, but delayed gratification is your friend, and doing it for the right reasons in the right way will serve you long term and everyone else around you.